10,000 troops. Yes, that's the latest report we're getting right now from authoritative forces. But in this video, we, of course, are going to go over all the disinformation when it comes to the fog of war, the propaganda regarding Iran, North Korea, which, by the way, just launched a scathing attack on Joe Biden. We're going to have another video by Trump being Trump on this matter and kind of break through a lot of the bullcrap and help you see the larger picture of what's actually happening with American foreign policy. Now, let's just get into it here. But before we do, I wanted to remind everyone that I and a lot of other people will be speaking at the Anarcho Philadelphia event this September 13th to the 15th with a whole bunch of awesome speakers. We have Clive DeGarle, we have Max Egan, we have Mark Passio, we have Larkin Rose that are going to be speaking, as well as myself. And you could buy your tickets. If you use the promo code WRC, you actually get 5% off.
Luke, it's actually WeAreChange, just to let you know, so they know what.
No, that's an old one. It's WRC. I haven't changed it back to WRC. I totally messed that up. Yeah, I sent you the wrong photo. My bad. WRC is the promo code. I remember working that. Apologies. WRC for 5% off on the tickets. And I hope to hang out and see some of you guys in Philadelphia. So if you're around, come hang out. But all right, let's get into the main foreign policy news story of today. And that is, of course, that Donald Trump may be sending 10,000 troops to the Middle East. Many people, of course, are saying this is because of Iran. But Vox has a very interesting article saying, quote, with their title, "The U.S.-Iran standoff may be cooling off." And they go, their main premise comes from the acting defense secretary, Patrick Shanahan, who told reporters, quote, "I think our steps were very prudent and we've put on hold the potential for attacks on Americans." And that's what was extremely important. The Vox article continues. In other words, the imminent threat the Trump administration was warning about may not be so imminent anymore. Again, total disinformation here. It's not that the threat was imminent. The threat was made up. People need to understand. Earlier this month, the Trump administration, along with John Bolton, said that it had intelligence that was showing that Iran was planning to attack Americans in the Middle East. To clarify, Iranian proxy forces in a huge geopolitical region are going to be attacking the United States for. This is why the United States was going to send an aircraft carrier, which, by the way, they were sending in anyway a month before, which they announced. But they used this false pretense to justify the move that they earlier planned. And again, it was the Trump administration that was making the case that Americans faced mortal danger because of Iran in the region. Again, no evidence. The mainstream media just took that report, just like Vox did right now, and perpetrated that as if it was true. And now we're getting another report that the Pentagon is planning to send an additional 10,000 troops to the Middle East, of course, mainly because of Iran. And of course, this is contradicting the other Vox article with their exact headline, with Vox stating here now, quote, "The United States might ratchet up tensions with Iran by sending thousands of troops to the Middle East, a sign that the Trump administration may be preparing for a serious fight." Which one is it, Vox? We're going to break through all that, and we're going to tell you exactly what's happening in this video. But Jason, what's your assessment on just the duplicitous nature of the foreign policy coverage by Vox and the ridiculousness of the situation?
Well, folks, let's get some things straight here. First of all, that threat that we all heard about was given to us by what? Israeli intelligence. And then they said, well, it's a threat against U.S. or U.S.-related targets. Okay, so no specific bases, no specific targets whatsoever.
Somewhere in the Middle East by Iranian or Iranian-backed proxies or Iranian-inspired forces. Like, what? How more generalized could you get? It's like getting going to the restaurant, getting a menu, and the menu just says food. It's like, okay, like, what am I supposed to do with this? Sorry, go ahead, Jason. I cut you off.
And because of that, that's why this Onion article, it's not real. Iran did not shoot John Bolton. Okay. But it's as credible as any threat he's made. And I want to read two little excerpts from this because it's that hilarious. John Bolton stumbled into Capitol Hill saying, "Help, help, I've been attacked by a large Middle Eastern country around 636,000 square miles in size." Best part of the article, He's like, upon further questioning, Bolton admitted that the incident had happened so fast that it was possible he'd been attacked by Venezuela or North Korea instead. Also, as credible as it could be for John Bolton. But I got to tell you, I am worried, Luke, especially when you have the President of the United States talking out both sides of his mouth when it comes to Iran. Earlier this week, he went on Fox News, said that he did not want a military conflict with Iran. He would much rather have some kind of a financial pressure put on them. He calls out the military-industrial complex in this, Luke, but then he starts talking about Afghanistan as the Harvard University of terrorism training. So there's going to be a lot to unpack in this clip.
Yeah. Before we unpack that again, unpack this, we have to understand there's been multiple reports coming out today that the Pentagon is briefing Trump on increasing the American troops' presence in the region, and it's exactly unclear when and how they will be deployed. But the people are estimating, and the reports and the confidential sources, authoritative forces, are saying a possible of 10,000 soldiers if Trump approves this. There was a previous news article on May 14th of this year that talked about a report of allegedly the U.S. sending 120,000 troops to the Middle East to fight off Iran. This is something that Donald Trump has publicly called out as fake news, but he did say at the same time, if he did invade Iran, which he didn't rule out, quote, he would have sent a hell of a lot more soldiers. So that's the important topics here. And again, this goes along with everything we've been saying, the kind of back and forth, one step forward, two step backwards, Trump policy of a national and globalist, which he calls himself very duplicitously. But it kind of explains the bipolar dichotomy of a presidency that is pushing towards a bigger conflict. Again, I don't agree. The last video we did about Iran, we specifically talked about, oh, this is a strategy so he gets a better deal like he tried with North Korea. He's going to try to scare them into negotiating a better deal for the United States. That's not true. I explained why that was not true in the previous video. Watch the previous video on Iran about that. But let's go into some of more Trump's comments because, again, they're very duplicitous. Again, a nationalist and a globalist coming together in a bipolar sphere that is Trump talking himself about this. Let's just play the clip.
We have tremendous power economically. If I can solve things economically, that's the way I want it.
So you can reassure people you're not looking for some kind of conflict in Iran? And
well, I'm the one that talks about these wars that are 19 years and people are just there. And don't kid yourself, you do have a military-industrial complex. They do like war. You know, in Syria with the caliphate. So I wipe out 100% of the caliphate. That doesn't mean you're not going to have these crazy people going around blowing up stores and blowing up things. These are seriously ill people.
Go ahead, Luke.
These are the people that the United States financed. This is the people that the United States wanted to overthrow the Syrian government. Trump understood this. He tweeted about this before. He was like, why is Barack Obama financing Hillary Clinton and Obama are financing ISIS? He knows this, but he somehow forgets this now when he's bombing the Syrian government and trying to go after the Iranian government, which were the forces that were fighting them. It is the Russians, the Iranians, the Syrians that are fighting these radicals that he's talking about. He's being a ploy of the military-industrial complex while at the same time speaking out against it. So Trump, what's going on here? Like, holy cow, dude. Like, if you understand this, how can you say what you're going to say next?
I don't want to say, oh, they're wiped out, ISIS. But I wiped out 100% of the caliphate. I say I want to bring our troops back home. The place went crazy. They want to keep, you have people here in Washington, they never want to leave. I say, you know what I'll do? I'll leave a couple of hundred soldiers behind. But if it was up to them, they'd bring thousands of soldiers in. Someday people will explain it.
Well, this is an example.
You do have a group, and they call it the military-industrial complex. They never want to leave. They always want to fight.
So let's stop right there. He says he doesn't always want to fight, but he can't seem to rein in this military-industrial complex at all, Luke. We now know through the leaked OPCW report, we did a story on this, that the chemical attack in Duma was staged. And that is what happened a week after Trump said it's time to bring the troops home. And then a week after that staged chemical attack, how did we respond? Actually, less than a week. We responded with missiles, escalating the situation there.
Well, not we. Trump all because of the reports of his daughter coming to him crying about children, saying, "Oh, look at the chemical, look how horrible Syria is," and then Trump send the bombs over. Trump, what are you doing? You understand this? You understand the military-industrial complex? You're aiding the actual enemies here of freedom, the radicals, the Saudi Arabians. Come on, Trump. They like seriously,
especially because Luke. The military-industrial complex is obviously an arm of this deep state that he's been talking about so much. And, this guy picks up, the reporter picks up on it and says, you're sounding a lot like that 2016 Trump that people wanted to vote for. Let's continue with the clip. If I can.
No.
Yeah.
I don't want to fight. But you do have situations like Iran. You can't let them have nuclear weapons. You just can't let that happen.
Why not?
So that's an example, I think, of what people liked in 2016, where you didn't come over as a traditional
changed.
Republican.
No, but
right?
I haven't changed.
And
take a look.
That's what we talk about on our show, the popular. I just wanted to go through a couple of...
I gave the generals, I said, go ahead. You got 1 year. See what you can do in Afghanistan. So they fight and fight and fight. But, we've taken it way down in Afghanistan. I don't know if you've seen that, Steve. We've taken it way down. Now, it's a rough place. It's a bad place. A lot of bad things happen. The World Trade Center bombers were sort of... That's like the Harvard University of terrorism.
Notice how he said that. He goes, sort of trained. And he doesn't even finish it. He alludes that they were sort of... Wait, they weren't sort of trained in Afghanistan. The majority of them came through Saudi Arabia, an American consulate, CIA consulate. Yeah. All right?
Yeah.
And he called that out. Previously, he talked about Saudi Arabia being involved.
Yeah, where there was even a whistleblower within the embassy that talked about how intelligence agencies were giving fast-track visas and approval for Al-Qaeda and radicals to come into this country.
Springman, yep.
Yeah, Michael Springman. Like, and your number one enemy is Afghanistan. Okay. He just talked about the military-industrial complex. One of the biggest lies from the military-industrial complex is that we have to start a war in Afghanistan because they attacked us on 9/11. What are you talking about? What? What's he like? Like, how can you be this disingenuous? You talk about the military-industrial. You talk about all the lies. You tweeted about all these things that were so big and impactful and truthful that got you reelected. But now you're gonna come on, dude. Come on. He knows it's a lie. He knows it's absolutely a total and utter lie, what he is saying. Is there more to this clip, Jason?
That is the end of that little segment of the clip. But I want to remind people what he did there. He rightfully called out the military-industrial complex, basically admitted to the world that he can't fight them because he hasn't been able to get us out of Syria, admits that they would stay there forever if they could, and it appears that they may be able to. And then he brings up Iran, situations like Iran. Well, since Israel told us that Iran is the biggest threat in the Middle East, they must be. Since the intelligence community that tried to stab me in the back and cut my throat as president, since they said so, we must believe them. And let's just look at this for a minute. In the Middle East, we know that Israel has nuclear weapons. We know that India has nuclear weapons. We know that Pakistan has nuclear weapons. Are you telling me that a sovereign nation shouldn't be able to build their own weapon systems as a deterrent? Iran has never attacked us. Iran,
I prefer less nuclear weapons.
I do too, but I understand. Can you imagine being surrounded?
Nuclear weapons, but that's a whole other discussion.
I think it's a faux argument, here. Luke. That's my point. I think it's a faux argument to try to say, hey, they're not allowed to have these things when everybody else who is openly their enemy are able to have those things, and when they are allied with Russia, which is a large nuclear superpower. I just think it's naive.
Well, it's important to note here that there's been members of the Trump administration, some people allude to Trump, that have been pushing for Saudi Arabia to have nuclear weapons and to share nuclear weapons and nuclear technology with Saudi Arabia. That's something to very, very much worry about and consider, since Saudi Arabia is trying to egg on the United States to go after Iran. So is Israel. They have foreign policy, geopolitical interest in that. And we have to understand here, I believe what Trump is doing is he's kind of slowly bringing back the old Trump, the Trump that got him reelected. You look at every president, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, all promised to be a non-interventionist peace president. That's what they used to get reelected on. And I believe with the election coming up, we're going to see a lot of more of this rhetoric by Trump, which is the correct rhetoric. It's correct to criticize the military industrial complex. It is right to criticize them and how big of a monopoly force and how uncapitalistic of a society and entity they are in our life. But at the same time, I always learned to judge a man by his actions and not his words. You look at his actions, they are directly contradicting that. He has also made sure that people can't get the reports of the civilians killed by drones. He has, again, admonished incredulous foreign policy behavior that Barack Obama would have never dared to be as aggressive on that he has been on, giving lethal weapons to Ukraine, bombing Syria, starting off these tensions that have been at its peak between Iran and the United States ever since the decades and decades of conflict and tensions that have been building with the proxy wars all over the world between the two major forces that are happening here. So again, judge a man by his actions, not his words. His words are great. Yes, criticize the military-industrial complex. But then at the same time, he says something like this comment about Afghanistan. At the same time, he commits all these actions which are against everything that he is saying. And those are the important aspects to understand here, because if you understand that there's a problem and you're not doing anything to stop it, you're part of that problem, especially when you're calling the shots, allegedly. But that's up to question here, in my opinion. That's my take on it. Anything else you want to say, Jason?
No, I think you're correct. I mean, how much of the shots is he actually calling if, like we've talked about before, he can't even get us the JFK documents he now promised us twice. Guys, we're doing 4 videos a day across 2 separate platforms. Behind me is News for a Change. If you're not subscribed to the backup, please do so. Ring that bell for notifications or you won't know when these videos come out. Go check out WeAreChange as well. Make sure you're subscribed and ring the notification bell there as well. But most importantly, you're getting out there and being the change you want to see in the world.